It's taken me 20 years to learn that if you want to break out of generational cycles of poverty, you cannot blame the genes. You have to own the bum. Because if you own it, you can fix it. That's the first thing that high net worth individuals do differently. They do not blame outwardly. And this is a difficult exercise because sometimes your blame is justified. We find ourselves in unfair situations and it might be right to blame outwardly. High net worth individuals do something different. They are 100% excruciatingly accountable for their own lives. They never blame the genes. They take total charge of their lives. That's number 1 of 4. Number 2, wealthy people continually raise their value. When my little sister grew up, she finished high school and she managed to take a couple of accolades that I was extremely proud of. She finished high school as top art and top design student. And I was so chuffed with this that I took her aside and I said, "Lauren, I want to be your first paying client." And I said to her, "Look, I'd like to commission 4 or 5 original drawings from you, and I don't have a lot of money. I'll give you $1,000. And 19-year-old Lauren's eyes went wide and her jaw dropped, and she said to me, "You and I have vastly different ideas about what is and what is not a lot of money." And I drove away from that meeting with my sister thinking, you know, that's fascinating. Why does she undervalue her own work? Is it simply because she's young? And the answer struck me, no, that's not the case. It's a form of conditioning, and it goes like this. Lauren's only other work experience was carrying bags for a cameraman at weddings over the weekend. And she knew that if she carried a bag for 4 hours, she'd get $200. So by extrapolation, it occurred to her that if she drew original drawings for 4 hours, she'd also get $200. And that's where the fallacy comes in. There is a different value to different kinds of work. And this is something that wealthy people get their minds around very quickly. The poor and middle classes are taught to earn the wheelbarrow way. And it goes like this. We are taught by loving parents with the best of intentions. My son, my daughter, you are young and strong. Pick up your wheelbarrow and fill it with bricks. Go out into the world and push your wheelbarrow. For every hour that you push your wheelbarrow, you will receive a coin. And we learn very early on to link hours worked with coins earned. What goes wrong? Well, we start paying for the car, the children, the education, our costs start to mount and to escalate, and eventually we realize we're not breaking even pushing our wheelbarrow. So what do? We go back to our deeply ingrained thoughts and beliefs, and we know that to get another coin, you have to push for another hour. So we get a second wheelbarrow in the evenings. And this is how the middle classes in particular hold themselves in generational cycles of poverty. The wealthy person's epiphany is this: dump the bricks in your wheelbarrow and carry gold. Or otherwise stated, raise the value of what you do. Now there are many ways to do that. You can earn extra qualifications. Interestingly though, qualifications get you in a door with the company, but they do not create high net worth individuals. That relies on a completely different skill set. In fact, there are incredibly prosperous people out there who have never finished high school, but they understand the entrepreneurial concepts. They understand leadership concepts. They know that public speaking can get them further in their career than a piece of paper necessarily can. Raising the value of what you do. When you become recognized as an industry expert, it changes the value of what you do exponentially. Here's a simple example. If you're a business consultant and you go into a large company in Johannesburg, you might work for them for a full week and hand in your bill, and it will have X number of zeros. But if you're Richard Branson, they have you around for 45 minutes of speaking, and they add 3 more zeros. It's not because he worked harder. It is the perceived level of expertise. Now, not all of us are Richard Branson, but not all of us have to be. Here's another way in which one man exponentially multiplied his value. He worked for an hour every morning, and he died wealthier than Ringo Starr and John Lennon of the Beatles. His name is Charles M. Schulz. Anyone ever heard of him? Yep. He's the author of Peanuts. He drew the cartoon strip with Charlie Brown. Every morning he drew a little 3-panel comic strip, and then he sold it to 100,000 newspapers around the world, and each one paid him. Then at the end of the year, they took all the comic strips, bound them together, and sold them in stores. This went on for 50 years. And of course, then there's the merchandising, and so on and so forth. He found a way to exponentially increase the value of what he did. Wealthy people don't work according to hours. They work according to value. That's number 2. Number 3, wealthy people represent themselves. Anyone here read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers? Yes. If you haven't read it, it is absolutely superb, and I recommend getting hold of it. He draws an interesting distinction between how wealthy people and the poor and middle classes raise their children. He says, the poor and middle classes, using an example of going to a dentist, will teach their child that the dentist is an authority to be feared. You must simply sit back, let him do what he has to do, don't ask questions, don't stir, wait until it's over. The wealthy do something remarkably different. They teach their children that the dentist is a resource to be used. They teach their children that the dentist is their friend who has answers for them about what they want to know. And on the drive to the dentist, they'll be telling their kids, what do you want to ask him? What do you want to know about it? He's your friend, he's there to help you, and we're paying him. And that's the kind of approach that they're taught. Now, multiply that kind of thinking over the course of a lifetime. Can you imagine the difference it's going to have on individuals? You've got one group who are raised to fear authority, disappear into a job, never make waves, and submit to authority. Wait for a paycheck, wait, react, be given your crumb at the end of the month. And you've got another group that says, authority is there to help me. The world is my resource and I can use it to my advantage. That's number 3. Wealthy people are taught to represent themselves. And number 4, wealthy people are risk takers. Wealthy people are risk takers. Forbes magazine recently had an interesting article where they said that the poor and middle classes are paralyzed by self-doubt and fear. And most people in the poor and middle classes tend to get stuck and fixated around the idea of a job. Why? Because it's perceived as safe. Now let's ask the question, is that genuinely safe? You are trusting your life, your family, your finances, your future. You're taking all of these things and putting them in one basket and submitting them to a person whose first objectives are not necessarily the same as yours. Wouldn't it be more safe to take the entrepreneurial approach? Try 10 big crazy things and only 2 of them work. Then you try the next 10 big crazy things and only 2 of those work. Now you're up to 4. Instead of one job supporting your life, you've got 4 streams of income, 4 things that have got momentum, 4 things that are working. That's the kind of thinking that high net worth individuals indulge in. They go bankrupt over and over and over again. What a terrifying prospect. But not to them, that's simply a learning curve. Being risk averse is one of the things that can keep us poor. Folks, I can't wait to hear Mr. Les Brown's message tonight, but I'd like to leave you with this thought. Scripture says, as a man thinketh, so is he. Don't think poor. May God bless you. Thanks for your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it deserves more. Let's give Douglas a big hand. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and a privilege for me to introduce to you a man that I see as my mentor, as my sage. Father was speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a warm South African hand. Les Brown.
And let's give Douglas a tremendous round of applause. Gave a great presentation, Douglas. Yeah. And most certainly, we want to thank the host of this event. We want to thank you, Gary and Jackie, for being so kind and so generous and so gracious. Give them a tremendous round of applause for their visionary leadership. I had a chance to talk to your husband very briefly, but we had a connection up in there, and he's a very special person. I want you to meet Dr. Julie Van Putten. She is